Welcome to Gate City Insider. I'm Rosemary Plybin. Since last fall, a new team has been working in Greensboro to provide a bridge between the Greensboro Police Department and the community to promote cooperation, equality, and understanding. Letitia McNeil's manager of the new Office of Community Safety. Hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So talk about why this office was created last fall.
So this office was created to be a hub for alternative responses to calls for service, for ways for police and community to work together in partnership with city leadership to be able to come up with ways to enhance public safety in our community.
Okay, so what are some of the primary objectives?
So some of our objectives are, again, we want to house the alternative responses to calls for service. So things where they may not necessarily need a law enforcement intervention. It could be something where it's a mental health issue, substance use disorder, those types of instances, maybe something related to homelessness, or dealing with community violence in our community and empowering our community to be able to make changes to enhance the quality of life in their communities.
So you're working, I mean, you're connecting with 911, it sounds like, too, to get these calls before they go to the police department or reroute them, I guess.
Yeah, so what happens is there's calls for service, and then our behavioral health response team responds to those in tandem with police. Mm-hmm. So we have that initiative going on, but then we also have ways for police officers themselves to be able to participate in diverting people from the criminal justice system. And then we also have our violence prevention and violence interrupters who are going to be tasked with going into communities and helping to curb some of the violence that we're seeing.
There are a lot of parts to this, to making this work.
A lot of parts. a lot of parts.
And so what is it like to be a part of that? I mean, it feels pretty transformational, really.
It is. I think, with what we're trying to do, we really are wanting to be those conveners of our community and our police. I think for too long, there's always been this, the relationship is sort of a us and them, mm-hmm. and it's not an us and them, it's a community.
It's a we.
We all have a responsibility to enhance public safety in our community, whether we're a law enforcement officer or just a citizen that lives in a community and you're concerned about what you see there.
I suspect you've met optimism and some skepticism too. So
Absolutely.
What's it been like?
Absolutely. Overwhelmingly optimistic. I think the community as a whole is really at a point where we are wanting to see partnership. We want to see co-production, where it's not an initiative that is started by, law enforcement only or something that's started by community only. It's like we are recognizing that we all need each other to make these things work.
Mm-hmm. And so what kind of response have you gotten from police first? What's it been like for them?
They have been very supportive. A big portion of what we're doing is we wouldn't be able to do it without the Greensboro Police Department. They have been on board since the beginning, before the beginning, advocating for this, understanding that they can't do this alone and that they need support to be able to go into communities and really provide the change that they want to see also.
And have you seen some changes? I mean, slowly starting to happen. It's very new, I know.
So it's very new. One of the initiatives that we have had for a little while is our behavioral health response team, which has been very successful in the community. We have a great team of clinicians and officers that respond to calls for service. We need more. We need more clinicians and officers doing that role. The community is very much so on board. They will call and request to have those responses.
Yeah.
So it has been overwhelmingly positive.
How can the community be more involved? I mean, part of it is just knowing that you're here and knowing what services and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, just understanding that we are here. Mm-hmm. And that this is a process. Change is not going to happen overnight. That was one of the things that I said from the beginning is give us time. Give us the opportunity to be able to try different initiatives. Everything may not work the way we want it to at first, but we have to have the opportunity to at least try the interventions and see how they work, and evaluate those processes, because that's a big portion of what we are trying to do is really be data informed. What we're doing in the office is we want to look at where the data leads us. What, are these interventions successful? What is the data saying? Where can we make adjustments? So making sure that we are really evaluating the steps and the processes that we put in place.
So you can make real-time changes to keep the community safe, to keep the police safe, everybody working together.
Yes. Yeah, that's the goal. Community safety it's a community responsibility. I mean, to enhance public safety in our community, it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take us all coming to the table and being willing to work together.
Tell us about Greensboro Peace on Purpose. What's that?
So GSO Peace on Purpose is our violence prevention initiative that we've started. This is going to be an opportunity for us as a city to be intentional about violence prevention. And we're going to be doing that through a variety of different ways. We're going to be having our prevention pieces. We'll have some violence interrupters, or people who are in the community really intervening on those violent interactions. And then we'll also have some interventions, some targeted work that we're doing with other departments within the city and the community that are really focused on how we can intervene and provide alternatives for primarily young people to be able to do something else, so that they are not leaning towards violence.
Mm-hmm. What do you like about this work?
I love the fact that we get to really impact true change through partnership. I think oftentimes, in our society, we've had a us versus them mentality on a lot of things, especially when we're dealing with public safety. And I think that for me, the biggest part of this is working with the police department and understanding, seeing the heart in the police department, and that they really do want to see that change in our community, and that they are willing to step back sometimes and allow community to step forward, and also seeing community come to the table as well to be able to say, hey, we support the police, we support these initiatives, and using data and evidence-based practices to inform what we do is key.
And what have you learned about the police department and about our community, and the connection, the bridge that it was there and is there now in your work in just this short time?
So the bridge has always been there. There are always more people who are on board and supportive of partnerships than those who aren't. I think sometimes, we may hear some loudest voices, maybe naysayers, but there are people who are in our communities and who have been for years, who are quietly doing work. And now we're giving opportunity and voice for those individuals to really work and partner with our public safety entities.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. We
Thank
can't
you.
wait to see it grow and the change happen. We'll have to have you back and talk about
yes,
what,
please.
And actually about the change, and might be a totally different thing you're doing 2 years from now.
I want to, these opportunities to speak about the Office of Community Safety are great, but I've always said, give me a year. Let me come back when we've got some real measurable things that we can show in our community about how we've used this data, we've used these evidence-based practices to really inform sustainable change in our community.
All right, it's a date. Come back for sure.
Thank you.
100%. Okay, you can learn more about the Office for Community Safety by going to greensboro-nc.gov/OCS. Super easy to find that out. Okay, when we come back, we're going to head to the front lines. We're going to learn about the work of the Greensboro Police Department's Behavioral Response Team. You heard Letitia talk about that a little bit. They've been working for a couple of years now and seeing some real impact. So stay with us to hear more about that. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. Today we're diving into the work of the Greensboro Office of Community Safety. And with us now is Erin Williams, team lead for Greensboro's Behavioral Health Response Team. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, so this team was actually created back in 2020 and it just recently came under the Office of Community Safety. It was at the Office of Equity Inclusion. So if you think you've heard of it before, you have.
Yep.
So you've been with it since the very beginning. Kind of tell us about your work and what it is you do.
Yeah, so our team partners with Greensboro police officers to respond to 911 calls that have some mental health component, to hopefully have a specialty in how to triage the situation and also in what resources an individual might access to be proactive about preventing future crises as well.
So your background is?
I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor, which is a mouthful now. So I've worked in kind of different roles in the mental health system, and when this position came available, I thought, like, why not? It seemed like a great opportunity to be on the front lines of making this change in Greensboro.
Had you worked with police in the past?
Never, no. So this was a totally different experience. I think most people in the mental health side of things have not gotten the opportunity to do this kind of work, but I really have always enjoyed helping people in crisis kind of navigate those situations, and I thought this would be a positive new challenge, and it has been.
Okay, so who makes up these teams?
So on our team, there's myself, we have 6 crisis counselors, and we have 1 outreach coordinator. And outreach coordinator is kind of our fancy title for basically he does a lot of our case management and follow-up. So it's not just the crisis in the moment, but however long an individual needs contact with us to take the next step, to get connected to the community resource that makes the most sense.
Can you take us through how this works? Like in practice, you said,
Sure.
Diverting calls. So from the very beginning, a call comes into 911 and it may have a mental health component into it.
Yes, so call comes in. Typically, it's the 911 dispatcher who recognizes that they might need our team. I listen to the radio all day long, and dispatchers are constantly asking if a B-Heart unit is available. And the team sergeant on the police side is listening as well, and if so, kind of they dispatch our unit. So it's a counselor and an officer riding together in a car. They go out to whatever scene, wherever the call is taking place within city limits. The officer gets out, kind of assesses safety, make sure everything's good to go, and then the counselor joins as quickly as possible to kind of tag team triaging different components of the situation.
And so this could end with just that, just a visit
Yep.
and a leave.
Absolutely.
Or it could escalate and somebody might need more help or more support in another way.
Yeah, so sometimes you're absolutely right. We get calls, we go out, and it's a relatively easy situation. They just needed somebody to talk to in a moment or to help calm the crisis down. Sometimes our team has to help with getting somebody to a hospital, and we will do transportation to get there. Sometimes it's scheduling a follow-up visit to get the individual food or to make a referral to a therapist. So whatever is needed, our team of clinicians and officers, we do what we can to try to make sure the individual's okay that moment and ongoing.
So what is it like? I mean, you are seeing people in their moments of most vulnerability, big crisis moments, and
Absolutely.
and whether or not it ends up being a huge thing, it feels really big, either to the person or somebody who's trying to support that person.
Yes.
What is it like to be there in those moments instead of, for a lot of times in counseling, you probably hear about it after the fact and you have to be retold.
Yes.
You're actually seeing it unfold.
Yeah, it can be very high stress for sure.
Yeah.
Even the situations that end up being relatively easy to resolve, we don't have a lot of information going in. When somebody's making a 911 call, we don't have all the backstory. We don't really know what we're going into a lot of times. So it can be stressful. But I think on the flip side, it's very rewarding to be able to be a calming presence in those moments, to offer individuals support, and to show up and respond in a different way than maybe traditional law enforcement response. We've gotten
They don't have the same skills.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. We've gotten so much positive feedback about how reassuring it was to have a counselor on scene, or to have that post-crisis follow-up. Residents are responding really well to this as an option, even if they don't know that's what they're getting in the moment, because they're
Right.
not told that, a counselor's coming on scene.
Right. Well, so we talked about with Letitia data. Do you have any data? Like, has it resulted, you think, in fewer arrests or fewer escalations of conflict?
Yeah, we are working to be better at that sort of data.
Right.
Right now, we're mainly tracking our how many calls for service are we going on, some of the demographics about the individuals we're serving. We've just switched to a different system to manage our data, so hopefully in this year's annual report, we'll be able to speak a little bit more about exactly what you just asked about.
Have you gotten to a point where people are calling 911 and asking for this team?
Absolutely, yes.
Wow.
People who've had contact with us before or who have learned about us in the community through different agencies. We have had individuals call in and ask if BHeart's available or say they want to speak to a counselor. So definitely the word is getting out.
And what is the response from the police department?
I think it's been really positive. So in addition to 911 dispatchers being able to request us, patrol officers can request us too. If they show up on a scene and feel like we would be a better fit, they can radio for us as well. And that happens a lot. I think that officers are really liking the fact that they don't have to have all the answers to this, situation that they don't have total training for.
Right.
I think they do an amazing job, and we've worked with officers who are really skilled, but it's nice to have a partnership with somebody who does this for a living and is trained in a different way.
And it's nice to have the police there as well for you.
Oh,
this
100%.
multifaceted approach to
Yes.
helping people deal with crisis situations is really important, to recognizing their different needs that are happening all at the same time.
Absolutely. We could not do this without the officers. Right. Absolutely.
100%. And what would you want the community just to know about what it is you do?
I think just wanting them to know that we're doing the best that we can. I mean, even with our counselors, we don't always know everything in the moment about what resource is going to be best, or we don't always know, when we take somebody to a hospital, how things are going to play out. We don't control the whole system, but we're here to do what we can and play a small role in helping things go a little bit smoother.
Erin, thank you for spending some time with us.
Absolutely.
Really interesting to hear about the work you're doing, and we really appreciate it too. Once again, you can find out more about the Office of Community Safety, and again, that behavioral health response team is under that office. You can go to greensboro-nc.gov/OCS. Okay, we're going to talk about another program under the office. It's called LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, coming up right after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. We're learning more about the Office of Community Safety with the City of Greensboro. Another part of that, some of the other work that is starting, is called LEAD, which is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. And Mary Hauser is coordinator. She's here to tell us all about that. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
All right, so what is LEAD?
LEAD is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion.
Okay, what does that mean?
We're going to be working in conjunction with the Greensboro Police Department. So when they encounter an individual that may benefit from this program, they will send them to me. So there will be no judicial involvement. It'll just be meeting with me, go over different domains, see how I can help.
Okay, so we were talking about behavioral health response. This is different.
Yes.
Okay, so what things might fall under your domain?
Biggest one, substance abuse.
Okay.
Addiction matters, that kind of thing. We're going to focus on unemployment, homelessness, education, just a wide variety of just how we can help the quality of life.
Okay, so in practice, what might this look like? Again, just getting started, I know.
I would get a phone call from an officer about an individual that they feel that might benefit from the program. We would meet, go over a bunch of different questions, and just see what they might need, whether it be education, because it's not just about a job, it's a career. It's not just going to be, oh, well, I need you to find shelter tonight. It's a home. It's to really change the person, being whatever they might need.
So this would be after the police have been involved to some extent. Perhaps somebody had been arrested, or there had been a call about this person, or even just a welfare check on a person.
It can be, but there will be no arrest.
Okay.
There could have been previous. Possibly
right.
It's not just a first-time offender program, but just instead of, jail doesn't help anyone. And it's just like when it gets down to just addiction, whether it be harm reduction or just how we can kind of, improve their quality of life as a whole.
Can you explain why this is needed?
Just because, the public, to me, needs to understand that addiction's not a crime. It's, yes, drugs are illegal, but addiction can happen to anyone. And I think with the right resources and the tools, we can help that person overcome addiction. If not, if people aren't ready to change, we meet them where we are. That's where harm reduction kind of comes in. We look at just the safety aspect of it.
What are some of the goals and the outcomes you hope to see?
A change, and just keeping people out of the justice system, especially when it comes to addiction. Just, trying to get them on a path to be productive citizens. And that's really what it comes down to, is just how I can help somebody. This is not just a job, it's passion, because I really do believe in what I'm doing, or I wouldn't do it. And I've worked in addiction for a number of years. So it's just, I'm really excited.
Yeah, so tell us about your background.
I worked last decade with juvenile justice, but I have worked with task and drug court in the past, working with addiction in a different avenue. So this is a little different, and it's much needed because there will be no judicial involvement. Yeah. And I can't, stress enough that, addiction's not a crime. And I don't want people to be treated as a criminal just because they, are in addiction. Whether it be just an opiate for surgery, can easily snowball into something more. And, I want to be there to help.
Yeah, depression, abuse. So many things can lead to it. So you have so much heart for this. Where does that come from? Just from your work?
Yeah, I've always wanted to help people. Law enforcement's in my background, nursing, and I didn't know which way I wanted to go. And I was in nursing. I was taking classes for nursing school and then took a juvenile justice as an elective. And I was like, I really loved this avenue, switched over to criminal justice, and that was it.
And so what did you learn from that, your time, especially in juvenile justice?
It's a different ball game, but again, it's, hopefully changing that at an early age. And just, but a lot of kids are a product in their environment, and it's just kind of helping, again, the family, not just the child, but the whole family needs to change. And, it was a good experience, and I'm glad that I spent a decade doing it. But I missed working with addiction, just focus on addiction. Right. And when this opening came, I was like, it was time.
Okay, I feel like people are going to be hearing about this, and this is going to get people really excited. So what did people need to know about it now? And are there ways to get involved, to help, to support?
Well, down the road, we are looking at social referrals, which are going to be not necessarily where an officer would have charged the person, but just they may know. They've had some, run-ins with an individual, and they'll just kind of do a social contract to me. There won't be, again, of course, no judicial involvement, but there wouldn't have even been just someone they may know is struggling. And so, we're looking at different avenues that are not always going to be a charge pending over somebody.
Right. Okay. So the big question is when. I know people are thinking, well, when will we start to see this in action?
Well, we're going to start out as a pilot with one in particular district.
Okay.
And then just kind of, smoothly transition to every district instead of it being this bombard. Every officer's calling me wanting to, help this individual because, officers don't always want to charge someone.
Right.
Right. We're all in this to help people. And so I think this is a much needed program that should have been here a long time ago, but it's here now, so.
Yeah, so I think talk just a little bit about that, because I think that's an interesting point. You said officers don't want to charge people.
Yeah,
that's not why they're in it.
That's not why they're doing what they're doing. We just want to help somebody. And sometimes there are charges where, judicial involvement has to be there. But if not, especially when it comes to addiction, this is a perfect avenue for someone that it's just to let them know that we're there to help. It's not about punitive. I do really want the public to know that it's not, and it's not about just, a slap on the wrist. It's really trying to change someone and their quality of life to make them a productive citizen and get a job and function and not have to depend on, a drug to do that.
And is it just you right now, or is
it is? It's just me,
growing?
and there'll be peer supports, and of course all of us, Be Hard and violence prevention. We're all going to work together because we're all going to probably intertwine our clients, and so it's exciting. And I think we all can agree it's a much needed program for everybody.
And hopefully one that will continue to grow
Absolutely.
and help even more people. We look forward to getting started. Again, like I said, with Letitia, we're going to check back with you in a year or so
Absolutely.
and see how it's going and get an update on, and I'm sure you'll have some good heart stories to share with us. So
I'm sure.
Mary, thank you so much.
you.
You can learn more about the work of the Office of Community Safety. Go to greensboro-nc.gov/OCS. And when we come back, we're going to chat more about it. We're going to find out a little bit more about some work to prevent violence in our city. So stay with us. Welcome back to Gate City Insider. Today we're digging into the work of the city's Office of Community Safety. This office is committed to creating a community-centered and safe Greensboro for everyone. Arthur Durham's work is centered to that last point. He is a violence prevention coordinator. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you with us. Okay, violence prevention coordinator, that sounds like a very big job. So where do you even start?
Like you just said, violence prevention. Unfortunately, we have a violence, nationally. Greensboro is not unique in that mindset in terms of how we can reduce it. So what we're trying to establish here through the Office of Community Safety's violence prevention angle is to just bring about a collaborative effort to attack violence at its epicenter all throughout the city and all of the areas that, have the prominent existence of violence there. So my task is to try to bring about that collaboration with CBOs, government, any community residents who are interested in trying to bring about change through preventative measures.
Your background is with the Gate City Coalition Anti-Gun Violence. So what from that experience are you bringing to this job?
Well, Gate City Coalition they utilize the Cure Violence model. I was participating in Cure Violence in New York City, where I first started it at. We became the crisis management system through the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So what happens, I became an international trainer of the Cure Violence model while incorporating the crisis management system through collaborative effort through New York City. So working with Gate City Coalition as a consultant, I just, was instrumental in creating certain philosophical approaches that they had and they didn't have through engagement methods and, outreach methods as well.
So what are some of the Cure Violence things that worked in New York that you think could work here?
Intimate association with the
mean?
subset population that participates in violence and utilizing the credible messenger, which is he or she who was unfortunately involved in negative, practices in the community that was, participating in violent activities. And what we do, professionalize them in the art of violence interruptions, through preventative measures and strategies that targets that population, and they use their credibility to be the messengers of that pervade message that we're trying to bring about in terms of reducing violence, targeting that population, extracting them, right, and try to treat whatever it is that ailed them to make them exist in that capacity through whatever resources we had that can bring about that change. And we did that throughout all 5 boroughs.
So this is really building relationships is super key in this. It's everything.
You have to meet individuals who are up against it through whatever inherited societal condition that they've had. So you have to meet them where they are in order to get an understanding to why they exist in this capacity. So somebody who's speaking their language or come from that background, you don't want to stigmatize, but you have to understand in order to be able to relate, to be able to bring about that change. So who else to do it but somebody who's walked in that walk before?
Yeah. So have you had the opportunity to do that and be with those and make that change?
Well, my background, I'm a Philadelphia resident, and I came through that very hard, time during the crack epidemic, things of that nature. So you had people who invested in me growing up, my mentors, and people who, instilled that template of dreaming and don't forget. So when I was in New York City, or wherever I was fortunate enough to participate, Chicago, St. Louis, Milwaukee, things like that, I would always go out with the guys and girls who were doing the work, because I can understand where these individuals are coming from, and can, try to change a mindset or offer some direction through being intimately involved with them. Not just, see them and leave them, but try to stay with them and help walk them through that life. And this is, that change rather, and it's worked for us. If you ask me in terms of being involved in the work since 2013, this is my 10th year. We've seen dramatic changes. I mean, it's not nothing absolute in it, but at the same time, I've seen some dramatic changes throughout these cities where I've worked.
Yeah, Letitia talking about being a bridge earlier, and I think it's interesting to see, she was talking about a big bridge, community, police, other organizations. You're talking about really personal, small bridges, person to person, from one person to you to one other person, to try to enact change at a very small level that could maybe grow into big change.
Yes, because some people feel as though nobody cares about them. And if you have an adverse circumstance that allows you, say, to be adjudicated, some of the people have been in prison, and might just, dropped out of school, whatever you may have, inherited the condition of poverty, and we understand everything that's associated with that. So when you have somebody that can offer them some changes and some tangible outcomes and resources right there that's readily available, sometimes they don't even know how to access that. So you give them somebody who's been through that, somebody who has the professional abilities to stay with them and show them through the professional existence. Be consistent, show them who you were and who you became, so they can have that sort of a template look. And they say, okay, if you've done it, I can do it.
Right.
Right. And that's more, through the collaborative effort with law enforcement, community residents, interrupters who are just doing, is a lot of groups here who are doing the work, and I applaud a lot of them. Sometimes whoever's toolkit, whoever has the valuable resource inside that toolkit, we would like to just put that person in certain areas so that expertise can be utilized and we won't miss nobody.
Yeah, because there are things there is work that's happening that is working.
Yes. Oh, there's a lot of programs here that can be applauded. So our task with the Office of Community Safety, Peace on Purpose, is to allow that to become a movement through collaborative effort and bring everybody together. So we'll have people in every city, every area of the city, and we all have the same agenda and the same mindset. So one mind, one body approach, so to speak.
Yeah, and I can see you working a lot with Mary down the road for sure,
Oh,
especially
yeah.
as her office grows.
Yes.
That has to have you excited to
Oh,
see that
yeah.
lead getting started.
Yes, alternative resolutions are important because sometimes you want to give that person who might just have a slip, and give them that alternative or that other lane where they can, rectify themselves. And that's all it takes is an opportunity sometimes for people to invest belief in people, right? So that's what it takes sometimes. So some people to see that there are resources in the city, there are people who care and people that can allow them to change themselves with help. Sometimes people think they're by themselves, and us in the city, we would like to just show people, no, you're not by yourself. There are remedies, there's resolutions, and there are services that you can actually bring into your life and hopefully manifest something different than where they were before we got to them.
All right, well, again, we're going to have you back in a year or so, okay?
Yeah,
we're going to talk more
please.
about it and get you to share some success stories with us because
Oh,
we're
we
looking forward to
definitely
hear
will.
that.
We look forward
You
to
can learn more about the Office of Community Safety, greensboro-nc.gov/OCS. Thank you once again. Really appreciate you spending some time with you. Looking forward to your good work. Well, that is our time today. Thank you for sharing some of yours with us. From all of us at GTN, have a great day.